Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Take a breath. Try not to listen just with your ears or your thoughts, but with something deeper inside you. Because what you're about to hear may challenge everything you thought you knew about life, about yourself, and about what lies beyond. There is a greater power behind our existence. This isn't just a belief or a theory. It was a realization by one of the most brilliant minds humanity has ever known. A man whose name has become almost mythic, Nikola Tesla. What you're about to hear was never meant to reach the public. It was hidden, suppressed, and forgotten for nearly 100 years, an interview that disappeared into silence until now. And now, just as the world begins to stir from a long spiritual sleep, Tesla's words are beginning to emerge again like echoes from a deeper truth. Before we go on, I want to offer a gentle warning. If you're not ready to question everything, it may be best to stop here. Because this story touches something sacred. It might shift your view of God, of death, of why we're here and who we really are. It happened in 1934, high above the streets of New York City, in room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel. Tesla was no longer in the spotlight. His funding had dried up, his fame had faded, and many of his peers had distanced themselves. Yet in this quiet isolation, something changed. He allowed a young, unnamed journalist to sit with him, face to face. Tesla made a strange request. Turn off the recorder. This, he said, I won't entrust to paper. The reporter, deeply moved by the conversation, would later recount it from memory. And it is from those memories that this story survives. The first question was innocent, almost childlike. Mr. Tesla, the reporter asked, do you believe life was created by accident? Tesla gave a quiet chuckle before replying. I asked myself that question even before I became a scientist. No, nothing is accidental. Everything follows a formula. The universe is one great equation, and beyond it all there is thought, not theory, not a guess. Thought, conscious, intelligent, creative. The reporter pressed him gently. So you believe that some higher reason lies behind human existence? Tesla nodded. Behind everything. But people are not ready to hear what I've discovered, not yet. He stood and walked toward the window, gazing out in silence. Then he spoke again. I once tried to build a device that could pick up the voice of the ether. You see, ether is more than space. It is memory. It holds every thought, every emotion, every movement across time. And one day, I heard something. Not a voice, but a kind of pulse, a direction. It told me we were not just made. We are being guided. The reporter, stunned, asked, guided by who? Tesla turned to him, eyes shining unnaturally bright. A force. Religions call it God. But it's not a man in the sky. It's something far greater, a vast, intelligent field of consciousness. We are part of it, like cells in a living body, and every cell matters. He paced the room slowly, waving his hand in the air. When I worked in Colorado Springs, I felt something, space itself breathing. I sent out waves, and something responded. Not an echo, a real response, as if something beyond matter recognized that it had been seen. The reporter had stopped taking notes. He was just listening. My mistake, Tesla admitted, was trying to prove it with instruments. But this truth, it must be felt. The universe has been humming this song all along. Even your soul, it's a vibration. And that vibration never dies. We don't vanish. We remain. Everything we are is resonance. The young journalist finally asked the question that had been growing inside him. But you're a scientist. How can you speak of souls and God like these are facts? Tesla's eyes darkened. He sat down heavily. Because I no longer believe, I know. He paused, then continued. Electricity, magnetism, vibration, these are just forms of the same thing. One day I realized that consciousness itself is a vibration too. It doesn't come from the brain, it comes through it. The brain is a receiver. The real source is beyond us. We are not thinking alone, we are connected. Connected to what? The reporter asked. To the field, to the source, to that higher power, whether you call it God or the primordial energy. I call it the light. He stopped speaking for a moment, then smiled faintly. I once tried to measure emotion, anger, love, joy. Each one had its own frequency. But love was the purest. It resonated perfectly. It was closest to what I called the original vibration of the universe, and fear was the lowest. It disconnects us, blinds us. So, the reporter whispered, you believe love connects us to this higher power? Tesla looked at him with calm certainty. Not just connects. Love is that power reflected inside us. We weren't made from clay nor from chaos. We were formed as a response to a call from the light. They were quiet for a moment. The moment itself felt unreal. But why, the reporter finally asked, do we suffer? Why do we die? Why can't we remember this connection? Tesla's expression shifted. He lowered his voice. Because we are learning. This life is a test. The blind learn to see more clearly. The lost value the path more deeply. We were separated from the source so that we could find it again, not as punishment, but as a journey. Each life is one step forward. One. The lights of the city flickered outside as Tesla spoke again. I've been close to discoveries that could have changed everything. Once I built a device that resonated with human cells. Illness vanished, but the project was shut down. They said the people weren't ready, that such power would be feared. The reporter leaned in. Who told you that? Tesla smiled, but not kindly. Those who profit from keeping humanity in the dark. They want people to believe they are just bodies, just accidents. Because a person who believes that is easy to control. He doesn't ask questions, he obeys, he fears, and then he dies. The reporter clenched his fists, anger rising in him. Then what can we do? Tesla didn't hesitate. Awaken. Learn to listen again, not with ears but with the soul. Every human being, no matter how forgotten, holds a spark of that original light. And if even one person awakens, others will follow. He paused and looked directly at the young man. You're not here by accident. Maybe you're one of the ones meant to carry that spark forward. The room fell quiet. The reporter felt as if Tesla's words had pushed him to a threshold, a line between everything he had once believed and something far deeper. He looked at the old scientist and asked gently, Are you afraid of dying? Tesla thought for a long moment. No, because death is not the end. It is a change in frequency. I've seen light disappear, not extinguished, but folded in on itself, still there, just invisible. I believe the same happens when we die. The form is gone, but the essence remains. He looked straight at the reporter. We go back to the beginning, back to the source that called us here. The journalist leaned in. And you've seen it. Tesla smiled faintly, a trace of sadness in his eyes. Yes, perhaps more than I should have. It's best that some truths come only when one is ready. Once, in the space between sleep and waking, I left my body. I was beyond time. I saw the past and the future as one. I saw those forgotten and those not yet born. The reporter whispered, Was that a vision? Tesla replied softly, No, it was the truth. Time is a myth. The mind arranges life in a line so it can understand, but everything already exists, right here, right now. All suffering, all joy, all choices, everything. Because in the end we all return home. Outside the window, thunder rolled across the sky and lightning lit up the buildings. Tesla gave a small, knowing smile. Nature hears, he said. It responds. We are more connected to it than we realize. I wasn't just experimenting with electricity, I was looking for the structure of reality itself, and the more I explored, the more I understood. Matter is just a shell. Consciousness is what the universe is made of. The reporter had come expecting an interview, but what he found felt more like stepping into the edge of a mystery. His hands trembled as he tried to keep up, unsure of what to write and what to simply absorb. It was as if the words were no longer just information, but something deeper, a transmission, something meant to be felt rather than recorded. He broke the silence abruptly, almost out of desperation. Please, if the soul really lives on, if we are eternal, then why do we die in such fear and agony? Why is there so much suffering in the end? Tesla turned to him slowly. His eyes held no judgment, only a quiet sorrow that seemed to stretch across lifetimes. Because, he said softly, forgetting is part of the path. Picture this. You wipe your memory clean before setting off on a voyage. You no longer remember who you are, where you're headed, or even why you left in the first place. That's what this life is. The pain, the confusion, even the fear. It comes from being disconnected from your true self. But the purpose, the real purpose, is to remember. Not with your brain, but with your soul. He walked across the room and laid a hand gently on an old recliner, as if touching something sacred. Everything you experience, even fear, is not a punishment. It's a message, a signal. The world speaks to you constantly. If you learn to listen, the fear begins to unravel, because just behind it there is always light. The reporter felt the air shift. He could barely breathe. This was no longer just a conversation. It felt like something sacred had broken through, not just for him, but for everyone who would ever read or hear these words. Tesla nodded gently. You're not the first to ask these questions, but maybe you're one of the first to really hear the answers. He paused and closed his eyes for a long moment, as though he were listening to something within himself that no one else could hear. I can feel it, he said quietly. I don't have much time left. Not physically, but energetically. It's like a pendulum inside me is slowing, but there's no fear because I finally remember what comes next. The reporter's voice broke as he asked, and what is that? What happens after all of this? Tesla's expression softened, full of compassion. We wake up, like coming out of a long, deep sleep. All the vibrations we were once cut off from come back. At the moment of death, everything returns. The memory, the identity, the purpose. We realign with the source. We were never meant to be lost forever. We only wandered for the sake of learning who we truly are. He paced slowly, his hands moving as he spoke, as if shaping invisible truths in the air. Energy doesn't die. That is the most fundamental law of all. It only changes its form. And consciousness, what you really are, is pure energy. That means it is eternal, untouchable by decay. Scientists still cling to the idea that the brain creates awareness, but I always ask them, when you turn off a lamp, where does the light go? When a person dies, does their personality just vanish, or does it simply change direction? He turned to the reporter, his eyes fierce now with urgency. Think of it like this. Picture an endless ocean, no beginning, no shore, and you are a wave within it. You think you're separate because you have form and motion, but when the wave settles, nothing has been lost. Everything you were is still the ocean, still present, still part of the whole. The reporter swallowed hard. So, do we return to God when we die? Tesla's voice dropped to a whisper. To something even greater than the idea of God, to the source behind that word, something that can't be captured by religion or image or belief. It is everything, beyond names, beyond doctrines. It simply is. Then why didn't you ever say this before? The reporter asked, barely above a whisper. He wasn't asking as a journalist anymore, but as a man shaken to his core. Tesla looked down, almost ashamed. I did try, in my writings, in conversations, but no one wanted to listen. They looked for equations, for evidence, but this truth doesn't live in graphs. It lives in silence, in the space between thoughts, and now that my time is ending, I have nothing left to hide. If even one person truly hears me now, it will be enough. He sat heavily, his energy fading like a candle nearing the end of its wick. This was never meant to be printed. I asked the last man to keep it hidden, and he did. Maybe the world just wasn't ready then. Why would it be ready now? The reporter asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Tesla met his eyes with a piercing stillness. Because we are at the edge between advancement and annihilation. We've built machines, yet forgotten our identities. We fly through the skies, but can't look inward. We fear death because we never understood life. Maybe now, just maybe, we're ready to remember. The air in the room changed again. The city outside seemed to vanish. A silence fell so deep it felt like the universe itself was listening. You asked who made us, Tesla said, suddenly serious. And now I'll answer. He paused, as if weighing each syllable. Consciousness chose to become matter. Light wanted to feel itself. We are that experience, not accidents, not mistakes. We are deliberate, designed, sent forth to explore. The reporter felt the truth of those words echo inside him, like something ancient was stirring awake. If this is a project, he whispered, then was there a plan? Tesla nodded slowly. Yes, a brilliant one. We were scattered into the world like pieces of a mirror, so that through feeling, struggle and love, the whole could come to know itself. You see, without darkness, you can't perceive light. Without forgetting, you can't truly remember. This is how the universe learns, through us. The reporter lowered his eyes. The magnitude of it all was almost too much to take in. So humanity has a purpose? Tesla leaned forward, voice firm. Yes, but we've lost our way. He stood and walked to a shelf, retrieving a worn notebook. He handed it to the reporter with trembling hands. I once built a device meant to amplify thought, pure consciousness, into the ether. Do you know what happened the first time I turned it on? The reporter shook his head. Streetlights flickered. Radios went dead. People had strange dreams. It worked. Space was listening. His eyes grew darker. Then came the men in suits, faces like stone. Stop, they said, too dangerous. What frightened them? The reporter asked. That I proved thought was power, that consciousness could affect matter. Because if people understood this, truly understood, they would no longer be controllable. They would no longer be slaves. Tesla sank back into his chair, wearied by the memory. That's why this could never be published, not then, and maybe not now. But I believe a time is coming when people will stop being afraid, when they'll want to know for themselves, to remember. The reporter sat in silence. Then, almost afraid to ask, he said, "And when that happens?" Tesla looked up toward the ceiling as if seeing far beyond it. There will be an awakening, a wave. Consciousness will begin to shift. People will start to feel what they once ignored. They'll hear the subtle voice, see the unseen. Fear will fade, sickness will retreat, and death will lose its grip, because they'll know they are not the body, they are light, pure light. A flash of lightning lit the sky outside, followed by a thunderclap that shook the windows. Tesla didn't flinch, he simply smiled. Truth always stirs the ether. Synchronicity is not chance, it's confirmation. Everything is connected. He turned to the reporter and asked quietly, "You feel it, don't you?" The reporter, overwhelmed, nodded slowly. "Then you've already begun to awaken," Tesla whispered, "and that means my work was not in vain." He stood slowly, as though rising for the final act of a long play. This isn't science, it isn't religion. It's a message for those who already suspect there's more to life than what they've been told. He looked the reporter in the eyes one last time. "You'll have to choose. Share this or bury it. But know this, time is running out. And when the great unraveling begins, it's vital that at least one person remembers we've never been alone." He stepped forward, radiant, not frail. "I'm leaving, but I am not disappearing. We will all meet again, because death does not divide. It only opens the next door." The reporter shook his hand, and for one strange, fleeting moment it felt like he had touched something that existed outside of time itself. "God," Tesla said gently, "is not an idea or a rule. God is what you are when you remember, when you love, when you forgive." He turned back toward the window, watching the distant storm above New York. "And if you're here right now, then you're already part of what's beginning." Without a word, the reporter walked away, unaware that this would be their final meeting. 3 months later, Nikola Tesla died alone in a hotel room. No fortune, no fame, only secrets. These notes remained locked away for nearly a century, until they found you. Now ask yourself, what if every word is true? What if you're not the body? What if you've just forgotten what you really are? Be still, listen. They are waiting, just beyond the veil.